name is PJ, and this happened about 3 Halloweens ago. My friends and I were all 17. We were about to go into senior year of high school. We knew we were too old to trick-or-treat, but we also knew we were too young to go out drinking. So we decided to do something fun. We knew about this old abandoned house on Miller Drive down by our house. Everyone in town knew the rumors about a murder-suicide back in the 90s. There were always lights flickering in the windows at night. It was the kind of thing we thought it'd be funny to film a ghost hunt or do urbex exploring. It wasn't funny. The house was falling apart. There were vines all through the windows, and the furniture was rotting, and the floors were soft under our shoes, almost like it was about to break. We split up to get better footage in the house, and that's when I heard Jordan yell from upstairs. When I ran upstairs, he was standing in a hallway staring at a door. There were fresh handprints on it. They were small ones, like a child, smeared in what looked like blood. We all thought it was a prank at first, given it was Halloween, until we realized Jordan was shaking. We all looked at Jordan, and he said that the door was closed when he got up there. And then it creaked open, almost on its own. The smell hit us first, like rotting metal. Inside was a twin bed covered in old sheets, and something large underneath them, shaped like a body. Before we could move, we heard footsteps coming from upstairs. Before we could move, we heard footsteps coming up the stairs, heavy and fast. We turned off our flashlights and crouched behind a dresser. The footsteps stopped right outside the room, and his face looked like it was burned. We all bolted for the door. Jordan tripped on the stairs and the guy swung. I swear the blade missed his leg by about an inch. We tore through the front door, screaming and running through the yard. When we got to the car, I turned back and saw him standing in the doorway, watching us. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't chasing us. He was just watching, almost daring us to come back. We called the cops from a gas station about a mile away. When they got there, the house was completely empty. There was no man, and there was no footprints, and there was nothing on the bed but moldy sheets. But that's not even the part that messes me up to this day. About 2 weeks later, there was a story in the news that a homeless man had been found deep in the woods near Miller Drive. He was stabbed to death, and his face was partially burned. In his pocket, they found a small key ring and a tag on it. It had an address printed in faded ink, labeled Miller Drive. And when they checked the house again, they found something none of us had even noticed. It was a new message spray-painted across the wall upstairs. It said, "Thanks for coming home." We never even bothered going near that house ever again, but I still think about it to this day. My name is Izzy. Every Halloween, a farm outside my town hosts this massive corn maze. It's supposed to be family-friendly during the day and haunted after dark. I worked there during college, usually running sound effects and checking the exits. Last year, I went back with my boyfriend and a few friends for nostalgic purposes. We got there late, right before closing. The staff was kind enough to let us through for one last run. At first, it was fun. Jump scares, fake screams, the typical stuff. But about halfway through, we realized we hadn't seen a single other group for at least 15 minutes. Then we started hearing footsteps behind us. At first, we thought it was another group or part of the act, until one of the workers, dressed as a scarecrow, came out of a side path and whispered, "You're not supposed to be here right now." "What do you mean?" I asked. He looked nervous. "The maze is closed. Everyone's supposed to be out." That's when the footsteps started again, but it was heavier this time, almost like sprinting. We all took off running, trying to find the exit. The scarecrow guy ran with us, shouting into his walkie. He was almost panicking, but no one was answering. We heard more running nearby. We could hear the corn rustling and snapping behind us. My boyfriend felt someone grab his jacket, and he shouted. I turned back and saw a man. He wasn't in costume, but he was covered in dirt. He was sprinting straight through the stalks. He was trying to wrap his hands around my boyfriend's neck, but my boyfriend knocked him off and pushed him to the ground. We finally burst out into the open, and security was already heading in after hearing the screams. They found the workers' walkies smashed on the ground. and a bloody hunting knife halfway down the trail. They locked the place down, but the guy was gone. About a week later, police found an abandoned tent deep in the woods behind the farm. Inside were photos, all of people inside the maze, taken from the rows of corn. And the most recent one was a picture of me and my boyfriend, taken less than 10 minutes before we realized we weren't alone in the maze. My name is Steve, and I live in a pretty quiet neighborhood in Ohio. Mostly families, lots of decorations, and the good kind of Halloween atmosphere. This happened last Halloween in 2024. It was around 11:30 p.m., and the night was basically over. All the lights were off in most houses. I was watching TV when I heard knocking on my door. Not the cheerful kind, especially at this time of night. It was slow, deliberate knocks. I figured it was some teenagers playing around, but when I opened the door, there was just one kid standing there. He couldn't have been older than 12. He was wearing an old plastic clown mask, cracked and faded, and almost yellow, like it had been sitting in someone's attic for decades. He just stood there, holding an empty pillowcase. I laughed kind of awkwardly and told him that he was a little late. No answer. He didn't even make a sound. And then he just tilted his head, almost the same exact way my motion-activated skeleton does on my porch. I noticed his hands. They were filthy, like he had been digging in the dirt. Something in my gut told me to shut the door, so I did. A few seconds later, I heard the knocking again. The kid was pounding on it, harder. I yelled at him to go home, or I was going to call the cops. And the pounding stopped. I went to check through the peephole. I didn't see anything. It was empty. And then I heard it, the sound of footsteps running down the side of my house. I rushed to the back window and caught a glimpse of him. The mask was gone. It wasn't a kid. It was a grown man. He was crouched over and sprinting toward my back door. He had this dirty gray beard with long bangs, almost covering his eyes. I grabbed my phone and called 911. He started shaking the handle, whispering something I couldn't make out, and then everything went quiet. By the time the cops arrived, he was gone. They found muddy footprints along my porch and backyard fence. About 2 days later, my neighbor showed me his ring footage. At around 11:27, the same time the knocking started, the man in the yellow mask was caught walking down the middle of our street, and he was carrying what looked like a real child's body over his shoulder. This happened about 2 years ago on Halloween night. My cousin Ryan and our friends Mark and Dylan went to this small-town Halloween event called Pumpkin Hollow. It's part fairground, part haunted forest. The kind of place you go to for jump scares and fried food. We got there kind of late, around 10:30 or so. The fair part was still loud and busy. Music, rides, kids in costumes, the works. But when we headed towards the forest trail, it was almost empty. We thought, all to ourselves, might as well try it. The trail had strings of orange bulbs, fog machines, and fake scarecrows set up along the path. It was supposed to look creepy, but it was mostly just cheesy. We were laughing, making fun of the props, until we noticed someone standing off the path near the trees. He wasn't wearing a costume, just a dirty gray hoodie and jeans. At first we thought he might have been an actor taking a break, but something about him felt off. He was just still, not moving, watching us. Ryan called out to him, "Hey man, you work here?" He didn't respond. He just kept staring at us, like he was trying to recognize us. We didn't recognize him at all, so it didn't really make sense. We started walking again, but when we looked back, he was following us. At first, he was just following along slowly, but then when we tried to pick up our pace, he did the same. Mark turned around and shouted, "Back off, dude." And he stopped for a second, and then smiled. It wasn't a normal smile. It looked forced, like someone trying to remember how to do it, almost painful. He said quietly, "You shouldn't be out here this late." His voice was low, almost like he was talking to himself, but loud enough that we heard every word. We didn't answer, we just kept moving, trying not to look back. Then we heard something, a soft scraping sound, like metal scraping against wood. When we turned back, he was holding something shiny. It was a knife. Ryan immediately yelled to us to run, and we took off down the trail. The sound of him running behind us was terrifying, with his heavy footsteps crunching through leaves and branches snapping around us. The trail twisted through the woods, but the lights barely helped. Every time I looked back, he was closer. At one point, I swear to God, I could hear him saying, "Come here, come here." We hit a fork in the trail and split up. Ryan and Dylan went one way, and me and Mark went the other way. I remember hearing Mark wheezing behind me, and behind us, we heard the footsteps stop. We froze. Then, from the direction Ryan and Dylan ran, we heard screaming. We heard Ryan yelling, "Go," and then something else, like a giant thud, like a body hitting the ground. We didn't stop to figure out what it was. We bolted straight ahead until we saw the glow from the fairground lights through the trees. When we finally made it out, we sprinted straight to the ticket booth and yelled for help. The man stopped right at the tree line, staring at us. He had this blank expression, and then he turned around and walked back into the dark. The staff immediately called the police, and they searched the woods. When they came back out, they found a knife near one of the fog machines, with fresh footprints around it, size 12 boots. But they didn't find the man. We all went home freaking out, but it wasn't until the next morning that things really hit us. On the news, we saw that a little girl went missing from Pumpkin Hollow that same night. She was only 7 years old. She was last seen near the forest trail, around the same time we were there. Her parents said she wandered off after getting separated in the crowd. The police think that someone lured her away into the woods, but they never found her. A few weeks later, one of the cleanup workers posted online that they found a small pink sneaker deep in the woods, past where the trail ended, the same brand and size the girl was wearing. I still think about that every Halloween, especially with my younger sister just going into kindergarten. If we hadn't run when we did, if we'd even stopped for a second longer, he could have caught one of us instead. And sometimes when I walk home late at night, especially with my sister, I swear I hear that same slow whisper behind me. "Come here. Come here."